8 Things Every Married Couple Should Talk About Openly and Often. Part 1. Now, a lot of married couples would probably tell you that they can talk to their spouse about anything. But is that really true? I've actually come across a lot who have a hard time even bringing certain subjects up in their own marriages. Cross-check this list and see if these subjects come up regularly in your own marriage. If they don't, maybe it's time they should. 1. Finances. You knew this was going to be in this post somewhere, so might as well get it out of the way. While a lot of married couples have one person who is more financially minded, that would be me in our marriage, it's uber important to be on the same page with your spouse about your finances. This includes like what you spend your money on, how much money you spend on those things, what your savings goals are, etc. Of course, those are really broad, but as a rule of thumb, the more open you are about money, and the more you're able to stay on the same page, the less frustrated you'll be later. Being the financial person in our marriage, Josh used to trust me with all things finances, and never checked our bank account like never. And being an impulsive person, this wasn't always the best thing for our savings account. Not that I would spend much at all, but I found myself making lots of little impulsive purchases here and there that would really add up at the end of the month. Things like gourmet coffees from overpriced coffee shops, new clothes and makeup from Target that I didn't really need, snacks that probably only looked good because I went shopping hungry, that kind of stuff. But I realized that what I was doing was hurting our bank account. So I asked him to check in on it here and there. Now, knowing that, my husband actually looks at our bank statements and wouldn't support my decision to buy yet another outfit from Target, I have an easier time putting it back on the rack than I used to. And our bank account is happier this way as well. The same principle has always applied to him, it's just an equal playing field now. My point is, while one person in your relationship might be better at handling money, both you and your spouse should have a good idea of where your money goes. That's all. 2. Critical things. No, not like mission critical. More like constructive criticism. Josh and I were watching the show Arrow on Netflix the other night, and a piece of relationship advice was given that went something like this: find someone you never have to apologize to. Josh and I immediately looked at each other and said, "Ooh, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works." What she meant by saying, find someone you never have to apologize to, was that you should find someone who understands you so much that you never have to apologize for not being there for them, because they'll understand that you had a good reason. Except that's really not how life works. Am I right? What if your significant other actually doesn't have a good reason for letting you down? Are you going to simply understand why they did what they did, and not hold them to a standard to where some of their actions are considered unacceptable? I mean, as much as it's great practice to give your spouse the benefit of the doubt, there also comes a time and a place to hold them to a standard. Now, I've talked about this issue before, but for this to work at all, your standards with your spouse are going to need to be mutually understood. Otherwise, if your standards are different, your words will only sound naggy and go in one ear and come out the other. So, that being said, don't be afraid to speak up and tell your spouse how they could improve where it matters. 3. Feelings. The other day I was speaking with a married woman who I have been close to for a long time. She told me that she tries to communicate with her husband, but there seems to be a wall there. Although she's able to ask him to change and do something differently in their relationship, and he doesn't reject her when she asks, she still never actually sees the changes she asks for. So while my friend is being open with her husband about what she would like to see change, which is great, she feels extremely hurt by the fact that her requests are being ignored. Knowing her husband, like many other husbands, I don't think he is intentionally trying to ignore my friend. He's actually a really good husband and she thinks so too. But what my friend finds hard to do is express how her husband's actions, or lack thereof, are hurting her. Yes, she's told him what she would like to see change, but when the change never came, she has a hard time letting him know how that makes her feel. And having a good husband who does most other things right can make it even harder at times to let him know that he is disappointing you in this one way that actually matters a lot. My advice to her and women who find themselves in similar situations is to tell your husband how his actions are making you feel. He may simply not realize how important your request is, and by letting him know that his actions hurt, he'll be given the second chance to understand the importance of what you're asking, and then hopefully Follow through. 4. Bedroom stuff. And I'm not just talking about the sheets you put on your bed. A lot of people come to and seek out other marriage blogs for advice on how to handle certain things in the bedroom, which is totally fine and great. But marriage blogs can only give you so much advice for your life behind the bedroom doors. The rest is really going to be up to you and that spouse of yours. Talking openly about your sex life is easier the earlier you start, but this can be done later in life, and you can get to the point where you feel comfortable doing it with practice. If this is something that doesn't come naturally to you and your spouse, but you want to try to talk about it more, start light. Be sure that you and your hubby are in a comfortable setting, and don't lay whatever is on your mind too heavy on him, if this is not something you usually talk about. Try to keep it light at first, and listen to what he has to say about sex as well. Then, after you both become more comfortable talking openly about your sex life, don't be afraid to dive a little deeper, always remembering to keep it an open discussion. 5. Funny things. Many marriages fall apart for many different reasons. A lot of those reasons have to do with the standards and confrontation and honesty we talked about above. But marriages can also fall apart, even when it seems as though there is nothing structurally wrong at all. In my experience, marriages can sneakily begin to disintegrate when a couple forgets how to laugh together. I've even gone through a period like this, specifically when our son was very young. To be honest, I was tired and stressed out and still adjusting to being a mommy, who was needed at what seemed like every second of every day. Laughter began to seem like a distraction from getting the things done on my very long to-do list, and I began to ignore it or even find it frustrating when my husband would try to have fun with me. When I learned to live in the moment and enjoy those small moments with my family, I saw that my to-do list didn't change, but my attitude sure did. 6. Future things. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. And I don't think this is a hard one for many youngish or new couples. But for many who may find themselves living in what seems more or less like a daily routine, the future may be something you haven't talked about in a while. While my last point points out that it's really important to also live in the moment, it's wonderful to have dreams and plans and a vision of the future with your spouse, no matter how long you've been married. One of Josh's and my favorite things to do is put David to bed and get a bench and set it up in our open yard and talk while looking up at the stars. We talk about life and what's going on in the now, but we love to talk about what our family might look like in the future, where we could possibly travel someday, the possibility of moving closer to our families. All that good stuff. This being said, it's also important to always remember to be content. If you're always living in the future, but things end up not going as you planned, it's important to roll with the punches and be thankful for everything that you do have and the experiences you have shared together.